Okay, let's get into it. The Soviet Union. When we say that name, the USSR, we're talking about something just unbelievably big.
It's hard to even wrap your head around it. For most of its history, it was the largest country on the planet.
Yeah, stretching across 11 time zones, huge parts of Eastern Europe and Northern Asia, all under one flag.
And it was a global superpower, no question.
Right. It stood toe-to-toe with the United States for decades. It had a massive army and, a terrifying number of nuclear weapons. It seemed indestructible.
But on the inside, it was actually made up of 15 different republics. You can kind of think of them like states, but each with its own strong culture and history.
And they were all ruled by one strict government in Moscow.
Exactly. A communist government that controlled everything. The economy, the news, daily life. It was all dictated from the center.
So that's our big question today. How did this enormous, powerful, seemingly permanent country just fall apart from the inside?
And so quickly, too. It unraveled in the late 1980s and was officially gone by 1991.
To understand that, I think we have to start with the economy, right? Because that seems to be where the biggest cracks were.
Absolutely. The whole system was a planned economy.
Which means no supply and demand, like we have. It means officials in Moscow were literally deciding what factories should make and what the price of bread should be.
For the entire country.
Yeah.
And, well, it just didn't work. This system was incredibly inefficient.
So you'd get these massive shortages of really basic things like food, clothes, you name it.
Yeah, people would stand in line for hours, sometimes all day, just hoping to get some bread or milk. It was exhausting.
And at the same time, the factories were using ancient machinery. They just couldn't keep up with technology in the rest of the world.
And here's the real kicker. While people were lining up for soap, the government was spending a massive chunk of its money on the military.
They were trying to keep up with the U.S.
Right. Trying to match American military spending, which was huge at the time. All that money went to tanks and missiles instead of, making life better for citizens.
And people started to see that. They saw how much better life was in Western countries, and it just created this deep frustration.
So the whole thing was like a pressure cooker. And in 1985, a new leader comes in, Mikhail Gorbachev. And he knows things have to change.
He could see the system was failing.
For sure. So he introduced two huge new policies. You've probably heard of them.
Yep.
Glasnost and Perestroika.
Let's break those down. Glasnost first. What did that mean?
Glasnost literally means openness. Before Gorbachev, the government controlled all the news.
Yeah.
You couldn't criticize leaders or the system. It was forbidden.
You could go to prison for it.
Yeah. Glasnost changed that. It allowed for more free speech. Suddenly, newspapers started reporting on corruption.
Wow.
And they started talking about historical mistakes, things that had been covered up for decades.
Yeah.
Banned books got printed. It was a flood of new information.
So the truth starts coming out, and I imagine that didn't go so well for the government's credibility.
Not at all. People finally learned the truth about how badly the economy was failing and all the lies they'd been told. The trust in the central government just evaporated.
So that's the openness. What about the other policy, Perestroika?
Perestroika means reorganization. This was the plan to fix the broken economy.
Oh, okay. So how do you fix it?
The idea was to introduce some market-style ideas, like allowing small private businesses to open up.
So a little bit of capitalism. Did it work?
It was a total disaster. The transition was just chaotic.
How so?
Because it was a halfway measure. They didn't go all the way. So prices shot up, but goods actually became even harder to find.
Wait, even harder. How was that possible?
The old system was breaking down before a new one could replace it. It just created chaos. People were not getting the prosperity they hoped for, and many were scared of losing their jobs.
So Glasnost lets everyone see the problems, and Perestroika makes the problems worse.
In the short term, yes, and that combination was explosive.
Which leads to the next big step, the push for independence.
Exactly. As the central government in Moscow got weaker and weaker, the 15 republics started to demand more control.
They wanted to rule themselves. You start seeing this wave of national pride.
It started in the Baltic republics, that's Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania.
They were some of the first and most organized, right?
Absolutely. They organized huge, peaceful protests. There was this incredible moment where they formed a human chain.
The Baltic Way? I've seen pictures of that.
2 million people holding hands, stretching across all 3 countries. It was such a powerful symbol of unity against Soviet rule.
And that idea started to spread.
It did, to places like Georgia, Armenia, and crucially, Ukraine. Moscow was just losing its grip. It couldn't control all these movements at once.
At the same time, things were happening outside the Soviet Union's borders, too, in Eastern Europe.
Yes, 1989 was a huge year.
Hmm.
Peaceful revolutions started sweeping across the communist countries that the Soviets controlled.
And Gorbachev made a critical decision.
He decided not to send in the tanks. For the first time, a Soviet leader let these countries choose their own path.
Which leads directly to the fall of the Berlin Wall.
The ultimate symbol.
Ugh.
The wall that divided communist East and democratic West comes down. People literally tore it down with their hands.
And the whole world is watching this on TV.
It sent a clear message. The communist system in Europe was collapsing, and that put even more pressure on the Soviet Union itself.
Which brings us to the final act, the summer of 1991.
A group of old-school, hardline communists decided they'd had enough of the reforms. They tried to stage a coup.
So they try to take power by force.
Yep. They put Gorbachev under house arrest and sent tanks into the streets of Moscow to try and restore the old, strict system.
But the people had had a taste of freedom. They weren't going back.
No, they weren't. Thousands of regular citizens poured into the streets and stood in front of the tanks.
That's incredibly brave.
And many of the soldiers refused to fire on their own people.
Yeah.
The coup just fell apart in 3 days. It proved the people had rejected dictatorship for good.
And there's this one iconic image from that moment. A man named Boris Yeltsin.
The leader of the Russian Republic. He climbed on top of a tank and urged people to resist. He became a hero overnight.
And he used that momentum, didn't he?
He did. He basically argued that the individual republic should have all the power, making the Central Soviet government irrelevant.
So the final nail in the coffin.
Pretty much. On December 25th, 1991, Christmas Day, Gorbachev went on TV.
His final speech.
He announced his resignation and admitted the whole system had failed. That night, the Soviet hammer and sickle flag was lowered from the Kremlin for the last time.
And the Russian flag went up in its place. The Soviet Union was officially over.
Just like that. The empire was gone, replaced by 15 new, independent countries, and the Cold War was over.
So looking back, what was the legacy of all this for the people who lived it?
It's complicated. On the one hand, huge benefits. People got freedoms they'd never had. Freedom to travel, to vote, to practice their religion.
But the change was painful economically.
Incredibly painful. The sudden switch to capitalism was a shock. The currency became worthless almost overnight. A lot of people, especially older people, lost their entire life savings.
And new countries had to be built from scratch.
Right. They needed new laws, new currencies, new armies. It was a messy, difficult process. Some regions had wars over borders and resources.
So it wasn't a clean break.
Not at all. It took a long, long time to build stable governments. Some are still struggling with it today.
But in the end, the collapse of the Soviet Union completely changed the world map and showed that, well, people's desire for freedom is a powerful force.
It absolutely is. And understanding this history is so important for understanding the world today, especially the tensions and relationships between Russia and its neighbors.
Good luck with your studies.